So what I'm bringing in here is knowledge, okay? And it's to deepen the understanding so that you can see your own path more clearly, so that you have the means to name it and understand it. And within the process that you're on, there's a practical process going on all the time. You know, your own experience day by day, whatever that is, it's coming in at a very practical level, you know, your life, and it can't be avoided. It has to be met. You're dealing with it as best you can, and it goes on and on and on for as long as you're here. It's going to continue. So your personal development at a practical level is lifelong. It's going to continue on till the day you die, and possibly further. We don't know, but probably further. Okay, so why would your understanding not also continue on for the rest of your life? Your life experiences are going to be continuing on for the rest of your life. So you need to understand, you need to deepen your understanding. Your personal development needs to also match your practical development in that descriptions, understanding, getting a handle on things. You see, so there's no end. There's a point you can say good enough, but even then there's more. You see, there's book 2, there's book 3, there's book 4, and so it continues. So you know, I'm bringing in the next page. Hopefully, that's what I hope to do. Okay, so this personal development, it is comprised of mental development and heart development. And in Buddhism, these are 2 schools of Buddhism. You have the Mahayana schools and the Theravedic schools. The mental development and more development of compassion and love, the capacity of our heart. So left, right, left, right, left, right. A bird needs 2 wings to fly. These 2 branches support each other. It's like you can't write words down without paper and a pen. One supports the other. And the way that we do all this, the way that this process happens, even practical, you could say, is through symbols. So we got the symbol of words, the meaning in the symbol, the meaning of the word, but also you got symbols as sensations. Do you know, is hot? You know, you drink a cup of hot coffee or hot tea. What does it represent for you? It could represent something else for somebody else. So we apportion values. Our mind, we do it all the time. Do I like this? Do I dislike that with taste, with smell? Everything that we meet it at a symbolic level. It's a vehicle to meaning. You see, you go out into the garden, you feel the wind in your face. There's meaning on that. It brings you to a place of meaning within yourself. So symbology, the whole area of symbology, not taking things literally, being able to see beyond things, see through things. See, it's very important to see, what does this actually represent? Where does this guide me to if I follow it into itself? You see, so in a way, language is like that. It brings us to a place. Okay. So you guys, for the week, you're working with silence. Okay. The silence. If I put the word "the" in front of silence, now it has different meaning. Somehow it elevates it. The silence, you know, where you stop talking, and then there's the silence. It sort of turns it into an object of some sort. Okay, the silence, what is it? Well, we know how we can sort of approach it by being quiet. But what is the silence? Okay, to be able to go beyond the word, the symbol, we gotta see, what energy is in it. What energy does this symbol carry? And the silence can have a profound effect on us. So there's a lot of energy in it. Okay. So as with another group, when I was talking about this subject, the way I approached it was to talk about two centers. We have the center of the ego, and we have the center of the self. There's the ego and there's the self. The silence is, you could say, a quality of the self. It's certainly not a quality of the ego. The ego can touch it. The ego can enter into it, but the ego doesn't create it. The silence is there behind everything, including noise. So it's not quietness, although maybe it could be described as stillness of a sort. Anyway, these two centers, the ego and the self. Jung talks about the ego-self axis, this relationship between the ego and the self. And when that relationship is strong and developed, the words he used is the ego-self axis opens. And when it's not developed, it remains unconscious. Okay. So these two centers, the ego and the self. The ego, what we know of the ego is that it is organized by complexes. It's emotionally organized. And complexes are complex centers of emotion. Now, when you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of movement. So energy in the mind could also be represented by a lot of thinking going on. So equally, complexes represent centers of a lot of activity, mental activity. So emotional activity. And Jung also stated that one of the surefire ways of recognizing that we're in the grip of a complex is we become emotional. So if you see yourself firing up at an emotional level, you can be absolutely certain, I'm in the grip of a complex, which may not be a bad thing. It could be very positive. The point being that the ego operates at this level. That's a level of complexes. It's very much centered around our body. Its other twin, the shadow, also centered around body. So both shadow and ego, emotionally based. Whereas the self, what can we say about the self? Well, it's more organized around archetypes. Okay, so what's an archetype? These patterns, these extremely big, energetic patterns of behavior. These filters that organize. It's like in Buddhism, they have this quite a complex idea of the wind of the mind. But what is the wind of the mind? Or the action of karma on the mind? What is that? What is the action of karma on the mind? creating basic ground from which all things are created. What does that refer to? Okay, so these basic patterns from which things evolve, these are archetypes. And Jung says, and from our own experience, we can see that archetypes can be found at the center of complexes. So archetypes organize complexes, and complexes are in a relationship with archetypes. So these are all like links of the chain. And this is the relationship between the ego and the self. At a theoretical level, if you want to write it down in words, this is the sort of stuff you need to write down. So Jung also says, he names a thing called the archetype of the self. And he says this is the central organizing archetype. Now, in his other sort of writings, he also talks about a god above gods, you know, in Abraxas, in the 7 Sermons to the Dead, Gnostic teachings, talks about there being a god above gods. Well, what are archetypes? Archetypes are gods and goddesses. You know, we study Greek mythology because it's very complete. There's full records of Greek mythology, and there's a full pantheon of gods and a full pantheon of goddesses. And each god and each goddess represents, you could say, an attitude of mind. So the archetype of the self is the god above gods. It is the archetype above archetypes. It organizes archetypes. It organizes creation all the way down to your life right now. But it's not personal in the same way as, say, the archetype, the feminine archetype or the masculine archetype, or the archetype of the hero, or the archetype of, I don't know, the carer or the wounded healer. It's not personal in the sense that those type of patterns are. The archetype of the self is more the archetype of Christ, the archetype of Jesus, the archetype of the Savior, the archetype of Christian mythology, the Son of God. Do you see, it's beyond. It's something that is going to lift you up rather than organize you on the earth. So it's very much of the transcendent. Now, I'm putting the silence opposite the archetype of the self. I'm putting those two things on exactly the same level. And I'm saying that when you touch the silence, you are touching the archetype of the self. You are touching the transcendent. Like shaking hands with God. Whereas for you to meet an archetype, say the archetype of the carer, or the archetype of the wounded healer, or the archetype of the child, you're not touching the transcendent. You're touching something that is bigger than you, certainly, and you're going to connect to it very much from a positive or a negative position, where you stand in relation to it. You know, are you the healthy child, or are you the child of famine? Do you know, are you full, or are you empty in relation to wherever you join in with the line? You know, these negative, positive attitudes are found in every archetype. But with the archetype of the self, it just reorganizes. So whereas archetypes will organize us, the archetype of the self will reorganize us. So your purpose in developing a relationship with the silence is really to find a quality from within yourself that can reorganize you, change things, lift you out of a pattern of behavior, you see, and put you on a new path. Do you understand? You're going to the God above gods. It's like going to the head office. Okay. So when we're in our day-to-day process, we're dealing with complexes, you know, our own emotional states. And we're dealing with the patterns that hold us within these complexes, our habits, our addictions, our stuckness, our inability to move beyond certain positions. You know, I'm not dealing with my freedom. I'm dealing with my stuckness, really. And it's an emotional journey. From the bottom up, it's an emotional journey. But from the top down, it's a journey of realization. From the top down, it's a journey of waking up in a second. You know, transcendence, where we transcend the stuckness, where we transcend our story. It can happen very quickly. And yet from the bottom up, it's lived. It happens within time. Day by day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. A lifetime of learning. So these brief moments of touching the silence, in whether you realize it or not, is having a profound effect within your process. As soon as you associate with an archetype, that archetype is influencing you. So when you go to the archetype above, when you go to the you know, standing in the presence of Jesus, standing in the presence of God, standing in the presence of the transcendent principle, as you move yourself close, as you move your state of mind close to the silence, whether you realize it or not, you are associating with that. And through the relatedness, it is going to have an effect on you, like transference and countertransference. Iron filings in a magnetic field. The iron filings have no ability to resist the magnetic field. Now, you know, your complexes will fire up and say, no, I don't want to do this. This is a waste of time. I'm not being entertained. Your ego, your shadow, will kick off and do what it does. But it doesn't matter. Let it do it. You're still associating around this very powerful symbol, the archetype of the self. So whether you're a willing participant or a non-willing participant, it doesn't really matter. It does in some ways, it doesn't in other ways. Okay, so the archetype of the self from the top down, it organizes us through qualities. It's like sunshine. You know, the sunshine hits the earth and lots of things grow. And then you can put names on the different things that grow. Well, there's an apple tree, and there's a pear tree, and there's an orange tree. You know, you can name all the different plants, the diversity of nature. You can name the different human qualities, the human attitudes, emotions, joy, sadness, grief, anger, the whole lot. You can name them all. But the archetype of the self, sunshine. Do you know, the shine of the sun, it warms you up, and then growth happens. It's a step beyond. Now, I asked the other group to do this, so I'm going to ask you guys to do this as well. I want you to, on the side of your page or on a page in your books, I want you to, at the top of the page, to draw a symbol of the sun. Just a symbol, circle, you know, lines coming out of it. Symbol of the sun. Just draw a sun on your page. And underneath the sun, I want you to write in the words archetype of the self. So you have a little sun symbol, then underneath that, archetypes of the self. And then underneath that, archetypes. Write in the word archetypes. And underneath the word archetypes, write in the words ego, shadow. And underneath that, write in the word world. So you got the sun at the top, you got the archetype of the self underneath that, then you got archetype, ego, shadow underneath that, and then world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. That's it.
Would you say it again?
Yeah. You at the very top, I want you to have a symbol of the sun, little circle with lines on it, yeah. And then underneath that, write in the words archetype of the self. And then on the next line, underneath that, write in the word archetypes. And on the next line, write in ego, stroke, shadow. And on the line underneath that, write in the word world. And that's more or less it. Now, there's a lot of dynamics going on within that, but that's the order of hierarchy. From the top, the transcendent, all the way down to the bottom, the world. So, the silence. The silence is beyond personal psychology. So, personal psychology, the world, my ego, my shadow, archetypes that I associate with, that organize me. Those three bottom lines, archetypes, ego, shadow, world. Those three lower lines, that's the personal realm. That's where you find me, the personal realm. And above, the three lines above, archetype, archetype of the self, and the sun. That's the transpersonal realm. Now, starting at the top, up there at the sun as a symbol for the transcendent is unknowable. It's without quality. Jung called it the pleroma. In Buddhism, they call it pure mind, dharmakaya. It is without quality. It has no discernible qualities, so it can't be named. You can't put a description on it because there's nothing there. Pure emptiness. And in being completely empty, it is completely reflective. the quality of consciousness, completely reflective. And then as it comes down to a more personal level, it goes from unknowable to unknown. Okay, the archetype of the self, to me, on the ground, is unknown. I can develop a relationship with it, but right now it's part of my unknown. I haven't had that much experience of it. Do you see? But in developing a relationship, I begin to know it through its qualities. The shine of the sun. The sun is giving out sunshine. It's giving out light. Okay, so this silence gives me light. It radiates into me. It fills me up. And as I experience that, the unknown becomes known to me. I can now talk about its qualities. In Buddhism, they talk about the four immeasurables: love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, stability of mind. Love, compassion, joy, equanimity, this stableness, steadiness. Okay, so the qualities of the silence: love, compassion, joy, equanimity. Love, compassion, joy, equanimity. The qualities of the transcendent: love, compassion, joy, equanimity. The qualities of the self: love, compassion, joy, equanimity. See, all the teachings point back up the line. They all point at the same thing, these qualities. Now, me on the ground, you know, my story, Stuart's story is going to be full of complexes, personal experiences, my own experience, my story, my emotion, all of my, not just the emotion from Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. It's also going to be the emotional week that I had. So it's not just individual emotion, it's clumps of emotion. Do you see, if I said to you, how was last week? You'd say, well, it wasn't bad. You've just brought all of the experiences into a clump. Do you know, a pile? If I said, okay, I want you to put your dirty laundry in a bag, you take off your clothes and you put it in a bag, today's clothes. And I said, well, what about the clothes from last week? And you go out and you pull in a big pile of clothes. Okay, so these heaps, these piles of emotion, in transpersonal psychotherapy, Groff calls them systems of condensed experience. Coex systems. Jung calls them complexes. But they communicate. It's like a big line of dominoes. You tip one over and they all fall over. You activate a complex and now you're in the grip of the complex. There's so much energy trapped in the system. As soon as you open the door, that system takes you over. I'm in the grip of that feeling. Do you see, we fall into unconsciousness. We fall into our emotional state. we forget who we are. We lose sight of the transcendent. The ego self axis closes, and we're very much in our ego, separate, lost in the world, alone. So guys, where are you at with this? Do you understand what I'm describing? Yeah. This, I'm in a way, I'm trying to give you Jung's theories on a page. You see, this is, you bring it right down to its basic facts. This is what it is. Jung's analytical psychology is the psychology of the transcendent. In all of his teachings, what he is teaching is how to approach the transcendent, how to approach the self, how to approach the silence. Now, you know, we do various practices, obviously. Breathing practice, meditation, all these things. And these are all just methods that we use in order to open up this ego self-axis. The experience of breathing. You know, if you take an ordinary person walking down the road and you said, okay, what's your experience of breathing? They'd say, well, I breathe in and I breathe out. That's as good as it gets. So to develop a discerning mind, a mind that's able to examine, there's three words I've been using last week quite a bit, I found, and they are constellation, distillation, and crystallization. Constellation, crystallization, distillation. Three words that are used quite a bit in depth psychology. Constellation, to constellate. I'm constellating a space. I'm constellating an experience. My practice. I do my practice in order to constellate something. I'm trying to create it. I'm trying to draw it out. Distillation. I'm sitting with something, reflecting on it. I'm working it through. I'm chewing on my food. I'm purifying it. I'm distilling it. I'm bringing it to a finer, more evolved place within myself. I'm sitting with this feeling and I'm allowing it to become clear. Do you see? I'm in a process of distillation. I'm working on something. It could be a sense, it could be a feeling, it could be an intuition, it could be a thought. I'm working out something, I'm distilling it. Crystallization. I'm bringing it to a point where it can literally manifest. I have it in my hand. I'm holding it here in my fingers. There it is. I can present it to you. To see, based on my own experience, my process of constellation, my process of distillation, I can now present it to you. Here it is. You take it. To see, it's crystallized. It's solid. Okay. So as you approach the transcendent, as you approach the stillness, knowing the path, this process of distillation, distilling your path, having reflected upon it, having thought it through, having sat with it. Do you see, I'm sure of what I do. I have distilled it, it's clear. I'm constellating it. It's becoming more crystal in my mind. Okay, so I place my head, I place my face in the dust at the door of the temple. How low can you go? Humbleness. I approach the transcendent with humbleness. I realize that I don't know. I haven't a clue. The unknowable. As I approach the stillness, I have to let go of everything. Say again. Was that for me, or was that just a noise in the room? I'm not sure. Yeah.
In the room.
Okay. As I approach in Sufism, as I approach the temple, the correct posture is to have your head in the sand. Do you see? Don't approach the beloved. Don't approach the Godhead standing upright. You bow down. You on your hands and knees. You crawl. Do you see? So you let go. You let go of all of your construction as you approach the stillness, the silence. You go there empty-handed. You open. And maybe the experience you get is an ordinary experience. And yet that ordinary experience has hidden teaching in it. You know, maybe all that happens is you have a nice day. And yet that nice day is full of hidden teachings, realizations, because of your own attitude. You have opened the ego self-axis. You have presented the ground to the sunshine. The sun has shone on the ground, and now all these plants can grow. These new things can develop. You see, your own personal process moves forward. It's personal. Each one of you is going to have a different experience. No two people are alike. You know, there's some people, including myself, along the way, you know, we have these tremendous big experiences, blowout experiences, that absolutely knock you over sideways. And it's like, what was that? Oh my God, that was a big one. Do you see? And it completely blows you out of the water. And it's like, flipping heck, what was that? And it's full of the transcendent. So much energy in it. It's absolutely full of the transcendent. And the lesson in it is nothing to do with the transcendent. It's all to do with grounding. Afterwards, you begin to realize, well, it's actually to do with becoming steadier and more solid and accepting myself. Do you see? Nothing to do with the transcendent and everything to do with my shadow. Accepting myself. But I needed that whack on the back of the head in order to get me into the state of mind where I can actually recognize that it's myself that needs self-acceptance. The problem has always been with me. Do you see, the block is my block. But it took the whack in the head to get me to realize that. And then sometimes, very often, you'll see that work done years ago crystallizes today. The benefit of work done years ago has led you to this place. And you begin to realize, my God, look at how the path began all the time back there. And I didn't realize what I was doing then is actually benefiting me now. And it starts coming together. You start to see how it's a path. It's a process leading you through the forest. It's not just an event or a destination. It's a living experience that life has within you. Who is you? You know, like, what are you? You know, your name. You're a symbol on a process. Okay, guys. So listen, we're going to. That's more or less the talk I wanted to give you this morning about what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day. I wanted to bring in stuff around the archetype of the self to get you to realize that these archetypes are real, but the archetype of the self is really where we are reorganized from. Now, having the image in your mind allows something to crystallize. If you don't have an image in your mind, you don't have any path. If Jesus Christ had never appeared within history, there'd be no symbol in the minds of men today. Do you see? And then that symbol couldn't operate in the way that it does. Okay, guys, any immediate comments on any of that? Questions on any of that? Okay, so what I suggest is you take 10 minutes. Grab tea, coffee, whatever you want to do. Have a think about it. And when we come back, we'll just open up some sort of conversation around all of this.